It is, brothers and sisters, it's an honor to be here with you, and I'll tell you why. I'm chairman of the committee that deals with health, education, labor, a lot of stuff. So I get involved with strikes and workers all across this country. And what I want to tell Shawn, and I want to tell all of you from the bottom of my heart, that the UAW's willingness to stand up to the greed of the big three and take them on in a way we have not seen a major union take on corporate America for decades. You know what you did? You not only won a great historic contract for the membership, I'll tell you something else what you did. Shawn, you and the UAW inspired workers all across this country. I think I will never forget the photograph of Shawn walking into a negotiating session with a T-shirt on saying, "Eat the rich." An historic moment. But what that strike was about, it resonated all over this country because it's not just the automobile industry. What do you think workers are seeing? They're seeing CEOs making outrageous salaries. They're seeing billions going into stock buybacks. And you're seeing the average American worker struggling to put food on the table or put aside a few bucks for a kid's education. And the American people are sick and tired of it. Love you too. And here we are today. Same old thing. UAW goes on strike, tough strike, win the strike, they sign a contract, and as part of that contract agreement, Stellantis made a promise that it would reopen its assembly line right here in Belvidere. And today, we are here to send a very clear message to the soon retiring Carlos Tavares. Keep your promise. You made a promise, keep it, don't renege on it. Reopen the plant here in Belvidere as soon as possible. Put the people who made the money for your company back to work. Now, Stellantis has called UAW's plan to reopen the plant here outrageous, okay? So let me tell Mr. Tavares and the board at Stellantis what outrageous is about. It is outrageous that Stellantis has spent over $8 billion on stock buybacks and dividends this year to make its rich executives and stockholders even richer. That is outrageous at the time when they're reneging on the agreement they made with the UAW. It is outrageous that while Stellantis was laying off over 1,000 blue-collar workers in Belvidere last year, as CEO of Stellantis, that guy, Mr. Tavares, received $39 million in compensation. Got that? And this is really, I think, at the root of what is driving working people, and I come from a proud working class family, driving working people crazy. And that is, this guy makes 500 times more than the average automobile workers. 500 times. And let us also be clear. You know, Stellantis is not some poor, struggling companies. You know, there are companies that have hard times. All right, we understand that. That ain't Stellantis today. This is a company that made over $6 billion in profits over the first half of this year. $6 billion in profits over 6 months. Not bad. This is a company that spent over $8 billion on stock buybacks and dividends this year. Not bad. This is a company that can and must keep its promise to the workers and reopen this plant in Belvidere. And let me say to Mr. Tavares, the soon retiring CEO, you, Mr. Tavares, are now the highest paid CEO among the traditional automakers. Mr. Musk, of course, is an exception to that rule. Last year, you, Mr. Tavares, received a 56% increase in your compensation package. Not bad. You guys ever negotiate a 56% increase in your wages? I don't think so. At almost $40 million a year, you, Mr. Tavares, earn 500 times more than the average auto worker. And the issue here, and it's not just Tavares and it's not just Stellantis, these guys live in another bloody world and have not a clue what the average American worker is going through. Mr. Tavares does not worry as he flies around in his private jet. He doesn't worry about how he's going to pay his mortgage, how he's going to pay the rent. He doesn't worry how he's going to feed his family. He doesn't worry about what happens to his kids or his family if somebody gets sick. All right? They live in another planet, and what we are seeing in terms of CEOs of large corporations, they could care less about the needs of the average American worker. And I think what we are saying here today in Belvidere, and I got to tell you, it's being said all over this country, is enough is enough. Brothers and sisters, and Shawn made this point, let's be clear, we are living in the wealthiest country in the history of the world. You got that? Okay. We should not have more income and wealth inequality than we have ever had in history. Do you all know that? There's never been a time in the history of this country where the gap between the people on top and the middle class and working class has been wider. You got three people on top, Mr. Musk and two others, who own more wealth than the bottom half of American society. You got the top 1% owning more wealth than the bottom 90%. You got CEOs, on average, making 300 times more than their workers, except in Stellantis, the number's even higher than that. That's absurd. Brothers and sisters, we are the only, and you don't see this on corporate TV too much, you don't hear it in the halls of the Congress, we are the only major country not to guarantee health care to all people as a human right. Last week, a couple of weeks ago, I had some guy from Denmark. I was talking to some guy from Denmark. I said, tell me, what happens when you get sick? He said, we go to the doctor. How much does it cost? He looks at me like I'm crazy. Signs his name. What happens when you end up in the hospital? Yeah, what happens? Nothing. Walk out. They spend half as much as we do per capita on health care. And yet they manage, and this is not just Denmark, it's all of Europe, it's Canada, they manage to provide health care to all human beings as a human right, not a privilege. In the last couple of years, under Biden and Harris, we've been making some progress in lowering the outrageously high cost of prescription drugs. Do you all know, some years ago, I took one from Detroit into Windsor, Ontario, with people who were dealing with diabetes, and we bought insulin for, anyone want to guess the differential? It's 1/10 the price in Canada. 1/10, same damn product. Same thing, all right? We pay by far the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs. Meanwhile, the pharmaceutical industry, with 1,800 well-paid lobbyists in Washington, D.C., makes billions and billions of dollars in profit. Thank you. You're right. They are. 1 out of 4 people. This is true. Look, In America today, you got 60,000 people who die unnecessarily because they don't get to a doctor on time. I speak to doctors all over this country. They tell me patients walk in terribly sick. Doctors say, why didn't you come in earlier? Well, I don't have any health care. I can't afford the co-payment. I can't afford the deductible. People are dying. 1 out of 4 people can't afford the prescription drugs they need. And the reason for all of that, it's that you got a health care system designed not to provide quality care to all of us, but to make huge profits for the insurance companies and the drug companies. Enough is enough. That's corporate greed. Now, we made some progress, and I give the Biden and Harris team a lot of credit. What we have done finally is we say, if you're a senior citizen dealing with diabetes, and a lot of them are, you ain't going to pay more than $35 a month for insulin. That's a step forward. People in this room, kids have asthma. We've managed to drive down the price of asthma inhalers very substantially. And most importantly, for the first time in the history of this country, Medicare will be negotiating prices with the pharmaceutical industry. And when we talk about the needs of unions and workers, it really does bother me on a personal level, because I do come from a working class home, to see some people who I respect. I know them, they're good people. I'm not talking about people who are racist or sexist, good people voting for Trump. And I know why. I know why. Because they feel dissatisfied that the Democrats have not been as strong as they should be in standing up for the working class. I know that. And I'm doing my best. Some of us are doing our best. But let me tell you, the one issue, maybe the most important of the trade union movement, I think Shawn will agree with me, is right now all over this country, because of what the UAW and other unions have done, people want to join unions. Unions today are more popular, am I right, Shawn? More popular in America today than they have ever been. Why is that? Because working people are not stupid. They understand that you can't get a decent contract negotiating all by yourself, right? That's what solidarity is about. And that's why people want to join unions. But you know what's happening? The corporate greed of the CEOs and the big corporations, you know what they're doing? They're spending hundreds of millions of dollars on anti-union consultants, trying to bust unions, making it possible for workers to join unions. And the antidote to that is passing what we call the PRO Act. Now, as I said, I'm chairman of the committee that deals with this stuff. We brought the PRO Act before the committee, 21 members of the committee. All 11 Democrats voted for it. Every one of the 10 Republicans voted against it. Trump is against the PRO Act. So if we're going to grow the trade union movement, we have to make it easier for workers to stand up against the illegal actions of the corporate America, which threatens workers. You want to form a union? Good, we're moving to China. You want to form a union? Good, you're fired. You want to form a union? Well, let me take you in the back room and tell you how terrible unions are and how wonderful we are. That's all illegal stuff. That's what the PRO Act does. That's what we're trying to do. I'll tell you something else, and I'm almost embarrassed. I really am embarrassed to have to tell you this. The federal minimum wage today is $7.25 an hour. And I was out recently, and I said, well, nobody really makes $7.25 an hour. I was in Texas. I said, oh yeah, people do make $7.25 an hour. And many make $9 an hour and $10. I don't care what state you live in. I don't care what community you live in. Nobody survives on $10 an hour in this day and age. So we have got to raise the minimum wage to a living wage, in my view, at least $17 an hour. And the UAW, in their contract negotiations, did something I thought was really, really smart. Other people thought you were crazy. And they raised the issue of the 32-hour work week. Remember that? He said, 32 hours a week, you're crazy. Why are you talking about this? Let me tell you why. Listen to this, because you ain't going to see it on television. Over the last 50 years, 50 years, there has been an explosion in technology, right? Every one of you workers is now producing far more than somebody on your job 50 years ago because of that technology, right? Worker productivity has gone up. Now, you would think that with all of that increase in worker productivity, you're producing more, the average American worker would be making a hell of a lot more money now in real dollars. All right, let me tell you something that is not discussed very much. And this is why the American people are so angry. Over the last 50 years, real inflation accounted for wages for the average American worker has gone down by $40 a week. Can you believe that? All right, that's why people are angry. That's why people are looking at Trump as an alternative. He ain't an alternative, but I can understand the anger. Let me tell you something else. Rand Corporation, big money interest, they did a study on distribution of wealth in America in the last 50 years. And what they found during that period is there was a 50 redistribution of wealth in the 50-year period. $50 trillion went from the bottom 90%, everybody in this room, to the top 1%. Got that? So what you're seeing is workers' wages going nowhere, massive transfer of wealth from the bottom 90% to the top 1%. So all that we are saying here in Belvidere is not complicated, and it is supported by the overwhelming majority of the American people. We have got to stop this outrageous level of corporate greed. Nobody objects to a CEO making a decent compensation package. Nobody objects to corporations making profits. But enough is enough. This country belongs to all of us, not just a handful of billionaires. So brothers and sisters, we've got a lot of work to do. And in the next 3-4 weeks, we have to do everything to elect Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. But this I say to you, as the longest serving independent in the history of the United States Congress. What I say to you is that the day after the election, under the leadership of the American trade union movement, we have got to put together a strong grassroots movement. We are the vast majority of people. Now, they got the money. I understand that. I deal with it every day. I deal with the drug companies and the insurance companies and Wall Street and all of the big auto companies. That's what I do. That's my job. I deal with them. They got lobbyists up the kazoo all over Washington, D.C. But at the end of the day, never forget this. If we do not allow our opponents to divide us up by the color of our skin or where we were born or our sexual orientation. I don't have a PhD in mathematics, but I do know that 99% is a hell of a larger number than 1%. Now, it's not Bernie. It's not Bernie. It's you. All right, understand this. What they want to do, it is you. And it's the UAW. And it's the union movement. All right, we have the power if we exercise it. And you got the leadership now that's exercising it. So brothers and sisters, I got 4 kids, I got 7 grandchildren. Together, we have got to create the kind of nation that we can become, not based on greed, but based on decency and justice. So I just wanted to, and I say this, I don't know that you appreciate it, all of you in this room. You are heroes and heroines. You are helping to lead this country in a new direction. Let's go out, let's do it. Thank you all very much.